A man discovers the horrific underbelly of New York City, but is unable to fully leave. I discuss this and more on today's episode. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found in my travels. Today it is Short Story Tuesday, and we are still in the month of Spooktober, where I talk about horror-themed literature, both poetry, short stories, and sometimes even books. And today's short story is all about murder and strange sort of lizard creatures living under New York City. I am referring to Midnight Meat Train by Clive Barker, which was written in the short story collection Books of Blood. This one comes from volume 1. I think there were 4 volumes published between 1984 and 1985. For those who don't know, Clive Barker is a writer, director, producer of sorts. He's written a number of books and short stories, including The Hellbound Heart, which was later adapted into a movie he directed called Hellraiser, which is something that I haven't seen, but I've heard of the series. I very much know about it. It sounds pretty terrifying. And so Clive Barker has predominantly written horror-themed literature and has had a hand in horror books and whatnot. And he's even co-developed a few video games, like the video game like Clive Barker's Jericho, and then a couple of other video games before that. And he's well regarded for his work, but I wouldn't say that he's as well known as, say, a Stephen King type, but he is pretty well known still. And this is the first time that I've encountered his work, but I have been wanting to read something from him for a while. And I remember Midnight Meat Train was made into a movie in like 2007 or so, and that the trailer for that movie I think I saw in the theater, and it was really unsettling. But it always sort of stuck on my mind, even if I don't think the movie did all that well. But I've always wanted to sort of check this out, and so that's what I'm doing here. And without further ado, let's talk about Midnight Meat Train. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Midnight Meat Train focuses on Leon Kaufman. He is a Jewish accountant living in New York City, having moved there less than a year ago, and he had high hopes for New York City, but he has since become disillusioned with the seedy underbelly, noting that it's very dirty and there are a lot of murders. It's not, he doesn't have a high opinion of it, but he still stays there. And at the time that the story takes place, there have been a lot of murders taking place. The media has been sort of sensationalizing it, and nobody can figure out who is doing the killings. But we also see insight into another character in this story, a man called Mahogany, who believes he is chosen. He is the one doing the murders, and he says he's doing it for the fathers, for some higher-ups. He's hunting people, killing them, and presumably butchering them for an unknown reason. And he believes that even if he were to get arrested, he probably wouldn't serve any time because he's chosen, as he believes. And then at some point, Mahogany gets on a train to do some hunting, but Leon is also on that train after getting off work pretty late. Leon falls asleep while he's in a car with a certain number of people. When he wakes up, one of the people is missing. Well, actually, 2 of the people, one of them being Mahogany, the other being a teenage boy. And Leon begins to suspect that something is off because the train didn't stop at any stops. But the people are missing, and they surely wouldn't have walked between the train cars or anything like that. But Leon then goes and listens at the door and hears some chopping taking place, and he realizes that Mahogany is probably the serial killer at that point, and that he's killing the teenage boy. And so like the train sort of announces that it's making a certain stop, which is also weird to Leon, because this isn't the path the train is supposed to go. And Leon realizes that at this point that something is very off, that this train is part of some sort of secret that he's not meant to know about. And so Leon hides underneath the train seat, and Mahogany enters and goes and talks with the conductor. And Leon realizes at that point that the conductor is in on this whole thing. And so Leon sneaks into the second train car and sees all the grisly body parts from the hacking that Mahogany has done, and he realizes at this point that he's not going to be able to escape the train, and so he waits for Mahogany to come back, and he has a knife fight with him, which Leon manages to kill Mahogany, who is shocked that he actually died at this point. And then the train arrives at a secret station, the lights go out, and a bunch of strange, I want to say lizard creatures, approach the train. And they start consuming the bodies, and then they notice Leon, and Leon's like, well, one of the creatures is like, you've seen us, you've killed Mahogany, it is your turn to do this. So they take him to see some sort of giant ancient being type creature that Leon refers to as the original American, here before any other humans were here, filled with an awe and sort of panic about the entire thing. And the creature asks Leon to serve, which Leon doesn't want to do, but then it says it's going to have Leon serve in silence, and it reaches into his mouth, and pulls out the tongue, and Leon no longer has a tongue and is in a lot of pain. The creatures proceed to go back to eating and then leave Leon on the train, and when he wakes up a short while later, the conductor grabs him, brings him to another train station that is sort of off the map in a white room, and sort of heals him and lets him know that he has a lot of work ahead of him because he has been chosen to do these murders for these lizard-type creatures now. The driver also announces to the people who are cleaning up the train that this is that Leon is the new person, the new butcher doing all of these killings, which the people regard him with a sort of reverence, I believe, is what is the way it's written. And at that point, as the story comes to a close, Leon leaves, and it's presumed that he's going to be doing the killings going forward. In terms of analysis, this is a real doozy of a story, very horrific and quite frightening, I would say. One of the themes that I think you can sort of catch in this story is sort of Lovecraftian type horror. It's or maybe not really a theme, but the overall vibe of the story is Lovecraftian or Barker horror, because that's its own separate sort of thing, I would say. So you have horror here that has two essential elements. You have a secret society that is operating in the shadow, the fathers of the city, mothers, sisters, and whatnot, who have been sort of operating in the shadows for quite some time. And then you have the vicious bloodfest that is taking place here. So in a way, Lovecraftian in that there's a horror about the sort of unseen things in society, the things you're not meant to know about, and when you discover your brain just can't seem to handle. And then the vicious bloodfest, which you see in like Clive Barker's Jericho or Hellraiser or something like that, where once you've discovered this secret society, they're going to try to eat you. They're like you're discovering what you shouldn't know about, and these horrific things are going to tear you apart if they get the chance. And there's an interesting quote that I would like to read to you from this. It was the final triumph of the butcher's craft. Here they hung, these shaved, bled, slit slabs of humanity, opened up like fish and ripe for devouring. Kaufman almost smiled at the perfection of its horror. He felt an offer of insanity tickling the base of his skull. tempting him into oblivion, promising a blank indifference to the world. And that's a very fascinating quote, getting at the underlying horror of seeing this sort of vicious bloodshed, which you're realizing is not done for protection or simply to kill another person. You're doing it to rip and tear and destroy somebody, or for possibly serving that for another purpose. As we see in this story, these people are being used as sort of food for these ancient lizard-like creatures. And so Lovecraft imagined these awful creatures and cults, but Clive Barker, again, he takes it a step further in saying they will devour you, they will leave you unwhole, they will take from you and leave you worse for the wear. And you could argue that maybe Clive Barker doesn't have like an imagination or something like that, where like Lovecraft left it to your imagination, but Clive Barker is kind of filling in the blanks. But I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad thing. He's just like being very specific in what's going to happen to you. And the unfortunate thing is Leon can't tell anyone about this. After all, who would believe him that there's these weird lizard creatures beneath New York City? But even more so than that, like, he doesn't have a tongue. They ripped out his tongue, and so he can't speak at all. It's pretty horrific, and so I do like how the Clive Barker horror and the Lovecraftian horror blend together to create something truly terrifying. Barker is also writing about disillusionment here. Leon had high hopes of life in New York moving from Atlanta, but he's seen through to the dark center of New York City. There's a lot of murders taking place, just a lot of death in general. It's a dirty city. There's graffiti everywhere. And it doesn't really seem like that much of a safe place to be. And so he had high hopes, and now he's kind of realizing what New York City truly is. But Barker kind of adds another layer to this story. Not only is he seeing, the perceived reality of New York City, that it's not that great of a place, but now he's seeing the additional dread beneath the surface, like the true heart of New York City, which is these giant sort of creatures that maybe keep New York City alive. They have some function, otherwise they wouldn't need to be continually fed. Maybe they might go up to the surface and start eating people. But this is what Leon is realizing here, that this is not the city that he maybe fell in love with, that he thought was going to be the actual city at the beginning of his move. He's realized not only is it a crime-ridden place, but there's something really gross and terrifying at the deep heart of it. And the unfortunate case is that Leon became disillusioned, but now he can no longer leave. Like, he's forever stuck to this place because now he is the butcher for these lizard creatures. He has to do the killing. And then not only that, but like if he tries to leave, those lizard creatures might end up killing him or something like that. So the disillusionment kind of runs deep, and unfortunately for Leon, it is a very sick, unfortunate ending, at least for his normal life here. It's just some other things that I think are interesting about this story. I do think the train scene is particularly tense, especially with the confrontation between Mahogany and Leon. I think it's very well written, very tense, and even though it kind of ends abruptly, it doesn't feel like it's inaccurate, because it's a very brutal ending. Like, Leon cuts Mahogany's neck. Mahogany just dies, and it's like that is exactly what was waiting for Mahogany, because he himself delivered that to other people, and so it's quick, but it's also very on theme here. And then I also think that this sort of story, it was written in 84 and 85. I do think it might be a commentary on 80s America. You have America with people saying like, oh, the American dream and America's great, but at the heart of it, there's this very ugly sort of core there. But also, I think in a way, Clive Barker might be sort of poking fun at this paranoia about crime in the 80s by saying, like, oh, New York is so bad, there's a bunch of lizard creatures stalking people, or like demanding blood sacrifices in the shadows, which is what many people probably thought New York was in the 1970s and 80s because of all the so-called crime. Which there was going on at that time, but there were a lot of systemic causes to it all. And so maybe Clive Barker is kind of poking fun at all that. It might also be the case that he's just sort of like playing it straightforward, but I do think based on Clive Barker's writing in the past, or just what I know about Clive Barker off the top of my head, there might be some commentary going on here. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Clive Barker's The Midnight Meat Train, a pretty fun, pretty good short story. I think it's probably so far the best of Spooktober, the best of this month. The other short stories I read didn't seem to hit as hard, but this was really good. And so I'm definitely going to recommend it. I'll put a link to it in the description. Let me know what you think in the comments below about this short story or about Clive Barker's writings in general. If you've read Hellraiser, let me know what you think about Hellraiser too. Or if you watched it as well. But yeah, other than that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any, that would be commenting, but never mind about that. Like, share, and subscribe so that other people can find out about this author or this short story if they don't already know. And until then, we'll also join the Discord if you want to have further conversations about this short story or other books or movies or TV or whatnot. And until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and train to mysterious places travels. Farewell.